Well, you might be the only one in class today besides JT. Nobody's here. It's just me right now.
All right. Oh, well, Headley, I think is supposed to be online, or she was supposed to be in.
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember.
I mean, all flights are canceled, so I can imagine maybe most people are just at home.
Yeah, probably.
Just you and me today?
Just you and me.
Let's go.
Who there? Who there?
Didn't show up today either. So we had a crazy day in class.
I know, we're about to go wild. This is gonna be a tough one for you Zoom folks because we're going over. I mean, I'll just go by the PowerPoint slides and we'll do examples later on in the week. But we're going over paper nav logs today, which is kind of one that is easier if you're here. So probably what I'll do is I'll go through this week's slides pretty slowly. And then tomorrow we'll do an example of them. So
Okay. I mean, I guess the only other option would be if there's some, they all kind of seem like they build on each other, so you can't really just go to another day. So, all right. We'll figure it out.
yeah, this is one that, or this week is one you want to be here in person for as much as you can. So,
All right.
yeah, it seems like day 3 is when we do a group nav log, but we have the E6B tomorrow.
Well, I'll be in the rest of the week. So,
Okay, cool. Let me get some more things situated.
how you doing, brother? You a good weekend?
Yeah, it was pretty chill. Well, I worked on Sunday a little bit, and then what did I do Saturday?
Did you go shooting?
No, I didn't. I wanted to, and every time me and my buddy like met up to go do it, we were just like, let's just chill. So
Yeah, I mean, you said it's like a couple hours, so it's a full day thing. And if you're just trying to like charge up, it's tough.
yeah.
Do you do any archery?
No, but I mean I've shot a bow and arrow before, but it's something I don't think I would ever like get into and purchase my own, but it's something I want to like go do. Like it seems fun.
Yeah, I mean that's just because they've got a place out like near Miramar that's relatively inexpensive and stuff, but like it's
Oh, really?
closer. You know, you don't have to buy ammo.
Yeah,
You can rent there, but and that's one of, if you got someone who's got a bow you can fit into, then I kind of was doing that for a while, and it was just kind of fun. One, like your nervous system, because you're just not rattling off rounds. It's just quiet. You're like, just this is weird.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Any any chance I can get a picture of the classroom when you get set up? Oh yeah. Oh, hey, with JT, what up?
Oh yeah, just me.
He's the only person that cares.
But hey, I care.
I know.
I was like strictly debate.
Dude, I'll be honest, if nobody
I was a
came,
little sore. I was like,
if nobody came and everybody was on Zoom, I probably would have canceled class because I'm not going to sit here and talk to a completely empty
I
room.
will go right now. Oh, we got one more.
Oh, yep.
Who dat?
Unless you want to leave and then I'll cancel for the day.
Sounds like a good hit of me.
I'm gonna stop sharing screen for a minute. Give me a second.
That beautiful road engine. Is that Francesca?
Yes.
Hello.
Hey,
Is it only her and JT in class right now?
yeah.
It is what it is.
I imagine it's super dead there. Well, I guess for except for Flight Simulator.
Yeah, but even then the schedule's pretty empty. I have sim after this and there's like nobody else on it for the day, so I don't know why that is. JT, do you have any experience with Pelican cases?
Kind of. Why?
I just got one like $150 off brand new yesterday for my rifle and watched a bunch of YouTube videos. Traced it, how they said to trace it. When they got an electric turkey cutter like they said to use, they're like, oh, it'll just slice through it like butter. Now I fucked it up and now I have to pay $100 for replacement foam. So that $150 off turned into only $50 off.
I usually get the foam that's the little squares
Yeah, do
everywhere.
they pull out?
Yeah.
Like if I would go to pull out the rifle, like is it gonna pull out the extra foam that I don't want out? Hmm.
Yeah, that's what because my buddy just got one of the little Pelican cases. Well, it's not little, it's like that big, like not rifle size. It
Mhm.
has all the square foam in it and he keeps his SIG underneath. And then he's got his mags on top and then he's got his cleaning stuff. And every time you pull everything out, the foam just stays in.
Yeah, I've thought
But I
about
like the
that,
square
but-
stuff way more than the like custom. Or you can get like a soldering torch
Oh, okay, that's what I've thought about that.
and just burn the inside or around it. And then.
You don't think it'd be
start to
like
peel it.
charred and like crusty though, like sharp, you know?
I mean, you burn it, I guess it will be a little bit.
Yeah, cause I did think about doing that, but. I don't
That
know.
or like boil your knife and try that. Something that's super hot will cut through. The single piece of foam is really hard to cut exact.
Yeah, I had the perfect outline and then went to Ace Hardware, got the electric turkey cutter and it just like it was like cutting it with a butter knife, like
Yeah.
it did not work and it's just super jagged and yeah. It was very frustrating because that's a lot of money I just wasted right there. I mean, the foam sets are like $100
Yeah.
on Pelican. Whatever.
That's why I like the square ones, because then on the sides, like around your gun, you can pull out the pieces and then you can put like your mags.
Mm, maybe I'll try that. All right, is everybody ready to get started? I'm gonna try to go really slow today because this week is a week that you guys, it'd be more beneficial if you were here in person, because it's gonna be a lot of hands-on stuff. So I'm just gonna go through this first PowerPoint. We'll probably take a couple breaks, because I don't wanna start moving ahead and then people get confused because it's more of a hands-on thing. Sound good?
Yep.
Cool, so week 7. All right, week 6, we started getting ready for the flying across country, so we talked about different flight instruments, the loss procedures, VR navigation, and then we did some written exam practice questions. Who can tell me what the 5 C's are for loss procedures?
Climb, conserve,
Confess. Call.
comply.
Cool. And remember to add circle into that climb, yep. So, yep, circle climb, conserve, confess, communicate, or call, and then comply. If we don't get any help, what do we do?
We call like a
Like after we've called, we don't get any help, the 5Cs didn't
Yeah.
work.
BR,
Yeah, BR triangulation.
triangulation.
Yep. Nope, and it's pretty straightforward. It's just something you'll have to do in the plane or on the baby sim for practice, but in the plane will be better just because that's using the system that we use. So now we get into the actual, I guess, cross-country planning. That's gonna be going over some terms like pilotage and dead reckoning, which are terms referring to types of navigation. The VFR paper nav logs, so that's gonna be you calculate all the different like legs of the trip, how long it'll take, how much fuel burn, your cruising speed, your cruising altitude, the magnetic heading, everything. You should be able to fly across country theoretically with just that paper nav log that you guys make and calculate. You shouldn't need all your GPS and everything. And then we'll go over E6B, which is the lesson that I dread the most. Last time I used a manual E6B was probably a year and a half ago, so that'll be an interesting lesson. And that's pretty much it. So we'll go over pilotage and dead reckoning today. In an introduction to flying cross countries and sort of getting some of the terminology. And then tomorrow is going to be like actually doing the paper nav log, I believe, or starting to go over that. Any questions about last week? What we went over? Anything with VORs, any lost procedure type stuff?
Everything pretty good.
Cool. Alrighty, so pilotage and dead reckoning. Two forms of navigation or two methods of navigation. Pilotage is going to be navigation by reference to landmarks or checkpoints. It's a method of navigation that can be used on any course that has adequate checkpoints, but it's more commonly used in conjunction with dead reckoning and VFR radio navigation. So every day you go fly and you make that right downwind departure, and then you go over the lake, which is Lake Jennings, and then you head towards the other water, which is El Cap, and you have the El Cajon Mountain off to your left, and then maybe you go north towards Flying T. That is pilotage. You're navigating the landmarks that you recognize and should recognize and should be familiar with, especially in this area. When we started talking about cross-country flying, and let's just say we go up north to LA, there might be, it's unfamiliar territory, so you can't just point out every single landmark you see. But in the cross-country planning, you should be using those VFR visual checkpoints. And let's just say one of them is a stadium. Everybody knows what a stadium looks like. Maybe there's some sort of lake that's shaped a certain way. You can identify that. So even with areas that you're not familiar with, you can still use pilotage as long as you plan accordingly in the pre-flight planning. As it mentions, you use pilotage with dead reckoning. So dead reckoning is the navigation solely by means of computations based on time, airspeed, distance, and direction. So that's going to refer to the paper nav logs where you're going to do all those calculations. What it means by using pilotage with dead reckoning is that sure, you're going to do all these calculations, you should be on this heading for this long, at this speed, this altitude, but each checkpoint that you put is going to be a visual reference, which is that pilotage aspect of it. The predicted heading takes aircraft along the intended path and GS. I think that's supposed to say GPS. establishes a time to arrive at each checkpoint and the destination. Oh, yeah, fuck. Thank you. Ground speed. Combination of pilotage and dead reckoning is used to create VFR flight plans. So yes, ground speed, that's supposed to be ground speed. I don't know why they got lazy for these two words or one word, but whatever. Ground speed is the type of speed we use for all of our performance calculations. Why is that? What does ground speed factor in?
Wind.
Isn't it like? Isn't the difference between it like the winds and everything?
Winds, it factors in wind, right? So each of the airspeeds indicated, calibrated, true, ground speed, they all piggyback off each other. Indicated is what's shown from your pitot tube. Calibrated is indicated, corrected for instrument air, instrument position air. Then there's true airspeed, which is your speed, which you're, I guess, traveling through the air. It's calibrated airspeed corrected for non-standard temperature and pressure. And then ground speed is true airspeed corrected for wind.
Isn't there velocity speed too?
Velocity speed is just your V speeds. Yeah. So when you hear that, like when you see VA, it's saying it's a velocity maneuvering speed. Yeah. Yeah, all the types of airspeeds piggyback off each other, with ground speed being the last one. And that's going to factor in wind. So if you have a headwind, your ground speed will be slower, which means the time it takes to get from point A to point B will be slower. And then if you have a tailwind, your ground speed will be faster. The time it takes to get from point A to point B will be faster. So that's where all these calculations come into play, and you'll be using ground speed. And with our lovely E6B, when we use the wind correction side, that's going to give us a ground speed. So that's where we're going to get that. And then that's why we use ground speed for our calculations. Any questions about pilotage or dead reckoning? So our VFR, visual flight rule navigation logs, or you'll sometimes hear referred to as paper nav log. It's gonna be a tool that we use to guide your pre-flight planning in a plan that you execute in flight. The value obtained from the navigation log is the centralization of all the information you need in an easy to read single location. Nav logs are organized way for a pilot to safely fly from point to point by solely using outside references and or calculations from the VFR nav log. Off here on the right in this little chart, you're going to see abbreviations. These abbreviations are what's going to be on sort of the header of the paper nav log for each column. We'll just start from the top. TC is going to be your true course. So this is the angle between your course and true north. MC will be magnetic course, the angle between your course and magnetic north. VAR is going to be variation, or the magnetic variation. So this is the number of degrees left to right used to correct a true course to a magnetic course. WCA is wind correction angle. The correction applied to a course to correct for wind drift. We'll use the E6B to do that. DEV is magnetic deviation. Each magnetic compass has built-in errors due to magnetic fields in the airplane affecting the compass's accuracy. We will not have to worry about deviation because we do not have a magnetic compass. In planes that actually do have a real magnetic compass, if you hold your iPad to it, it's going to deviate. And that's because of the magnetic field. So on the paper nav log, we'll put 0 for deviation. Compass heading, or CH, is compass heading. This is a compass heading you'll fly for a specific leg of your flight in your specific airplane. ETE, estimated time and route. This is the time it'll take to fly each leg. And then ATE, actual time en route, you'll record the actual amount of time each leg took. Once again, these sort of piggyback off each other. So we'll start with our true course, and then we'll take whatever the variation is. That'll be on the sectional chart, which I'll show you guys. And then from there, that'll give our magnetic course. From magnetic course, we'll calculate our wind correction angle. And we'll either write minus a number or plus number. So that's either wind correction to the right or to the left. From there, that'll give us our heading, right? Because our heading is where our nose is pointed. So if we have to correct for wind, we want to make sure that we point our nose in the correct heading to correct for wind, so we don't deviate off course. The paper navlog, it's easy just to go one row at a time from left to right, and literally it just lays it out for you in order of what to do. And we'll get more into that when we actually go over an example. But this is what it looks like. Can I draw? I think I can. So for checkpoints or fixes, we would write different. I'm writing with the mouse, so bear with me. Starting at KSEE, maybe our next one will be Lake Jennings. I'm just gonna write Lake J. And then maybe our next one will be El Cap Reservoir. Maybe after that, it'll be Flying T. And so on. These are all visual references. On a sectional chart, what is a visual checkpoint? How is it? What's the symbology for it? Flag. Little magenta flag, right? So Flying T doesn't have a magenta flag. El Cap doesn't have a magenta flag. Lake Jennings, I believe, has a magenta flag. Doesn't have to have a magenta visual checkpoint flag on it for you to use it. The biggest thing that DPs don't want to see is they don't want to see you using GPS waypoints, because the whole point of this paper navlog is to not use GPS. Obviously, we will in a real cross-country flight, so we can have that extra situation awareness and better accuracy, but we just need to choose something that we can see and recognize. And even though LCAP doesn't have the visual checkpoint flag, we can still look at it and say that is LCAP. So
What would be a GPS waypoint?
chief, right? CHEEF. So GPS waypoints are going to be 5 letters. But chief is one that you put in. It's not it's a little northeast of LCAP. So I mean, like, yes, you could use it, like you could still recognize LCAP off to your left once you get to it, but it's not necessarily a visual, it's just in the mountains somewhere. There's no like specific, it's not designated for a specific place. So that would be an example. For Lake Jennings, VPSLJ. So that's the 5-letter GPS waypoint for Lake Jennings. So if you want to put Lake Jennings in your GPS, you would type in VPSLJ. And it's okay to write that on the paper navlog, but you need to annotate that it's Lake Jennings. That's your visual reference. VPSLJ is not. Lake Jennings is. Even though it's the same thing, same place, you need to annotate like what is your visual reference. So next we have our course. This is sort of going to be a straight line point from point A to point B. So you see how like they're sort of offset a little bit each row. So this whole line right here is for the KSEE to Lake Jennings path. This whole line right here is from Lake Jennings to LCAP and so on. So this first line, we're gonna calculate everything for the Gillespie to Lake Jennings path. So that course is gonna be from point A to point B. You're gonna take your sectional plotter, everybody own one of those, it's that plastic rectangle with like the circle on it, and you can. No? You have
Got
one?
it.
Okay, get one, yes. If you don't have one, get one, because you can't figure out your course on a paper sectional chart without that. But whatever that course is, that ground track from Gillespie to Lake Jennings, you're gonna write that, this is supposed to be a number sign, but you're supposed to write that here. Next, our altitude. Everybody does it differently, but the way I've done it on every sort of check ride I've done, you're gonna have a cruise altitude, right? You're gonna calculate where you reach that cruise altitude. But from Gillespie to Lake Jennings, and maybe even to El Cap, we're most likely still gonna be climbing. So for this altitude box for Gillespie to Lake Jennings, I like to write Gillespie's elevation, and then an arrow like that showing that we're climbing. And then maybe once we hit El Cap, we'll be at our cruise altitude, and then that'll be 6,500 here, 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 and so on until we start our descent. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Cool. Next, the next box is going to be our wind boxes. It's going to have our direction, velocity, and temperature, all of which will be used on the E6B to get some calculations. Who can tell me where we would look to find this information? Not the METAR, because remember, we're trying to figure out
The winds a lot?
yes, the winds and temperature aloft.
Can you use the wood like that?
You can use the floor flight one. Floor flight's approved by the FAA, so that's totally fine. But you're gonna get the winds and temperature aloft for each altitude, right? So for the sake of Gillespie to Lake Jennings, yes, we could use the METAR, but remember, METAR is gonna be reporting surface winds. So from Gillespie to Lake Jennings, we're not gonna be at the surface the whole time. Maybe at Lake Jennings, we'll be at 3,500. So we need to, you'll probably hear John and Martha King on your King School training use a word called interpolate. Is that word new for anybody? Yeah?
Nope.
What about you Zoom folks? Do you know the word interpolate?
Yeah.
So interpolate is just finding the average, right? So you'd be taking the surface winds at Gillespie and the winds, let's just say at 3,500, where, we assume we'll be at Lake Jennings, and you just take the average between the two for the wind direction, speed, and temperature. If you haven't gone to that in King School, I highly recommend getting to that point, so that'll sort of create a better idea of what interpolating means. But from there, we'll get our winds. Let's just say the winds are coming from 340 at 7 knots. And our temperature is, let's just say 13. Okay,
Literally it.
this is it.
That's freaking wild. Same with her class. How many people in the show?
I mean, there's people on Zoom, but just got these two.
What up, Carlos?
See, what the Zoom people don't know is that the people that are here in class today are gonna get 10 free flight hours paid for by Dispatch.
Yay!
Sorry, Zoom folks.
Oliver is very, very giving.
Yes. All right, so let's just assume our course is 055 from point A to point B. We know we're climbing to 6,500. Our direction of wind is 340, velocity is 7 knots, and our temperature is 13. Everybody good up to this point? I'm just filling in random numbers, but we're actually going to calculate all this when we're actually planning our cross country. We have our calibrated airspeed and our true airspeed. This is going to come from the POH. We have a chart in there that we'll look at. Let's just say at this point, our true airspeed on the climb is 75 knots. From there, we have our true course. So I write 055 again because that's our true course. If we're flying 055 and we have the wind coming from 340, is that coming from our left or coming from our right? Left. So therefore, our wind correction angle might be, it would be negative because we want to crab into the wind, remember? Right, does that make sense?
I think so.
All right, if the wind's coming from my left and I don't want to get flipped to the right, I need to then turn to the left so I maintain that straight line from point A to point B. So we'll assume that we did our calculations and it's -3. So our wind correction angle is -3. So now, in pretty much the order we go in is like this. True course to wind correction angle, true heading, variation, magnetic heading, deviation to compass heading. So who can tell me what our true heading would be? If our true course is 055 and our wind correction angle is -3.
052.
052. All you do is subtract it. Stomach is making a lot of noise. Cool. Is everybody good up to this point?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Now I'm gonna exit out really quick. And I'm gonna go to ForeFlight because now the section that we're on, oh Jesus. Now the section that we're on is going to be this variation. And that's going to refer to the magnetic variation. Why is this still on here? Oh, let me see if I can hide this because dude, my stomach is going crazy.
I understood the same thing earlier. So 100.
Okay, I'm not going to clear this out because I want to save it, so just bear with it. So on a sectional chart, when you zoom in, we'll go to Gillespie. We're still in Mexico, almost there. So does everybody see this magenta line right here? People on Zoom, yes?
Yeah.
Cool. So this is your magnetic variation line. It's going to be a super long dashed magenta line. If you go to up by LA, there's one right here as well. And all it does is run diagonal, and if you follow it, it'll just keep on going. This is our magnetic variation line. So you see how this says 12 degrees east? And then we go back down to San Diego. And this one says 11 degrees east. So there's a phrase you need to remember. East is least, west is best. So when you see a number or degree that's east, that means you are going to subtract that number. East is least, you subtract. If this was 11 degrees west, you would add that number. So with that magnetic variation, you have to go to your sectional chart and see what that variation is in the area that we're flying. And let's just say we're flying to Hemet, which is right up here. We're still going to be in that 11 degrees east magnetic variation area. So, does that make sense to everybody how to find it?
Mhm.
Cool. So our variation is going to be minus 11. East is least.
Is it still that, do you have to put that 30 minutes on there too?
No, we just ignore that. Yep. Is that cool with everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, so then what would our magnetic heading be?
043 or 041?
041, because all you do is subtract the 11 from the 052. So our magnetic heading is going to be 041. So the direction our nose is pointed is going to be 041, and that's for correction for the variation and the wind correction.
And that's just on a magnetic compass, so that wouldn't be the same as an hour.
Well, ours is magnetic.
Oh.
Yeah, right, because we have the magnetometer in it, in the Aher system, so that takes the magnetic fields from Earth and it does this fancy science and corrects for it, so our HSI is essentially a compass. Does our HSI have deviation? Do we have a traditional magnetic compass? No, so what should our deviation be?
0.
If we did have a compass and we only had a compass, you would look at the little placard that should be with every compass and it'll tell you what the deviation correction is.
Mm.
But since we don't have a compass and we have our HSI, it would be 0. So therefore, compass heading, you could either leave blank, but I usually like to put the 041 just because it kind of stands out a little more right here. So from Lake Gillespie to Lake Jennings, our nose will be pointed to a heading of 041. On our HSI, it'll say 041. Even though the course is going to be 055, we have to correct for the wind and correct for magnetic variation.
A
Is that cool with
question.
everybody?
Yeah, I'm following at a question. If so, when we're actually in the cockpit, would we have in the course setting of the HSI, would that say 041?
No, so
Okay. Or that would just
when
be
you,
your,
when you set up your GPS, the course is just a ground track. It's just a straight line from point A to point B. So when you put in your GPS, Gillespie to Lake Jennings, it's going to give you that straight line, point A to point B of 055. But our nose, our heading will be 041.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
yeah,
So we're still going to follow that point A to point B, but our nose is just going to be pointed differently. It's like, remember when we talked about it, like you're swimming across a river, right? If the river wasn't flowing, you could just point straight across and swim from point A to point B, one side to the other. But if the river was flowing, we'd have to kind of swim upstream, angle upstream a little bit so we can maintain that straight line across. If it was flowing faster, we'd have to angle even more upstream. Otherwise, we would drift downriver. And that's the same with wind correction.
good.
So
Yeah.
in the cockpit, you're going to have your heading, which is going to show 041, and your course is going to be 055. Regardless of where your nose is pointing, it's still going to say 055. So our distance right here, this top part is going to be how long the total cross country is. And you are going to go on your sectional chart and you're going to measure from each point to point, all the way to the end. Let's just assume for this example, it gave us 50 nautical miles for us to do this cross country. And from Lake Jennings to, or Gillespie to Lake Jennings, let's just say was 4 nautical miles. So look at this gray part up here. It's showing the leg and the remaining time, or sorry, remaining distance. So the leg itself was 4 nautical miles. What would our remaining distance be once we get to Lake Jennings?
46?
Yep, 46. Now, let's just say from Lake Jennings to El Cap, it was 3. So what would be the remaining distance after we get to El Cap?
43.
37.
37.
Oh,
Yep, you're subtracting, right?
wait, if our total distance was 50, we were down to 46,
Yep, this is 46.
and then we went.
Oh yeah, y'all are
3 miles
confusing
after
me.
that.
Oh, cause we saw the 40.
Sorry. I can't write on this, it's a
40,
computer.
I swear that math.
Okay, and let's just say from El Cap to Flying T, it was 7 miles.
That'd be 36.
36,
I agree.
and so on. Does that make sense to everybody? All you're doing is subtracting and counting down the distance. Next section, GS, ground speed. So every time you do a wind correction calculation, it's gonna give you your ground speed. So let's just assume our estimated we got was 81 knots. So as we're climbing out, our estimated ground speed that we calculated is 81. The second block, you're gonna leave blank. That's gonna be your actual. So when you actually do the flight, you're gonna have this paper nav log with you. When you're flying from Gillespie to Lake Jennings, you're gonna look at your ground speed and write down what it actually is. The goal is to be as close as possible, but let's just say it was 83 instead, so we were 2 knots off. Next is gonna be our estimated time en route, and then our actual time en route. Let's just say it'll take us 4 minutes, and we calculated that using which formula?
The DST?
Yep, distance, speed, time. So we were gonna take our distance of 4 nautical miles divided by our estimated ground speed to get however many minutes.
It's that triangle, right?
Mhm.
Yep. The second block you'll leave blank and you'll wait. See, that's a question mark, but you'll wait to write that in until you've actually reached Lake Jennings and you look at your timer, which you started on the takeoff roll to see how long it actually took you to get there.
What does it stand for, the ETE and the ATE?
Estimated time en route, actual time en route. This next will be our estimated time of arrival. So let's just say we took off at 2 p.m. and we estimated if we took off at 2 p.m. and our estimated time en route's 4 minutes, what time should we get to Lake Jennings?
204.
Yep, so 2:04. And let's just say it actually took us 7 minutes, so our actual time is going to be 2:07 p.m. How many gallons per hour do we burn?
5.
Yep, for ease of calculation and safety. So then the fuel and the remainder. Let's just say we started off with 20 gallons. And somebody based off this calculate how long or how many gallons per hour it'll take. Or how many gallons we'll burn from here to Lake Jennings. What information do we need to calculate that?
We need the minutes, right? No.
Gallons per
Hour.
hour, so we need our hour time. Let's just say it was somebody converts 4 minutes to hours, 0.06. So 0.06 was how long it took to get from Gillespie to Lake Jennings. How much fuel are we going to burn?
.3 gallons.
0.3. So what's our remaining fuel?
19.7.
And that's it. Paper nav log is complete. You just do that for every single row.
Thanks.
Zoom people, does that make sense?
Yep, I'm following.
Cool. I'm going to erase this. Let's see how many we have left. Okay. Let's go ahead. I know it's early, it's only 45. Let's go ahead and take like a 10 or 15-minute break. Just so we can not rush too far ahead and get into things that I want you guys here in person for. So reconvene at noon.
Great.
Okay, gotcha.
They went said, yeah, I was gonna text you yesterday, but I was like, no, it's late, I don't want to text you. I don't want your man to be like, what the fuck are you texting me personally?
I probably would have laughed. What?
That's what I was talking to you about. So the thing though, and now I'm very curious about it, because it says that it's a separate event. You ever know at Disneyland when they do like the Oogie Boogie Bash and stuff like that?
No.
No? So it's like after 7 p.m. So you buy tickets just for
It's
that.
like horror night. 'Cause I did
Yes,
horror night.
yes, exactly like
Yes.
that, exactly like that. So they're taking over the whole area that's like the Minions area or something like that, and that's where they're doing the Star Trek stuff.
That sounds so fun.
It sounds rad, right? Like they're doing that, they're doing Back to the Future, there is some anime. Um, I think it's like, no, it's like 70, because it's only for a few, it's only for a few hours,
And it's only like a few of the nerds.
and it's only between April 28th to May 18th.
Oh. What is the event? Do they say what's gonna be there?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to look at, because they do name it.
Universal Fan Fest, Fan Fest Nights. Admission. Cosplay costume guidelines. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay, so this is everything, so they're gonna have, Star Trek, Back to the Future.
What the hell is that?
Dungeons and Dragons.
I
What's
think
his
it's
name?
One
That's
Punch.
one something, One Piece.
One Piece. I don't know that.
I don't know what that is. Jujutsu Kaisen?
Harry
I
Potter.
said we did have more Harry Potter stuff maybe. Oh, this is stuff they already have. I guess this is what's gonna stay open,
Oh,
the Harry
okay.
Potter and the Super
Nintendo,
Mario.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm considering going. It sounds fun.
Let's see, get details. The most immersive Star Trek adventure awaits you.
And that's what I find fascinating. So that's what it keeps saying immersive. So that means you have to feel like you're actually there.
I mean, look, they have you on the flight deck.
See, I didn't even see that.
They-
That's
They have you on the flight deck. So maybe you can sit in the captain's chair.
that's straight up out of Next Generation too. That is so
And
cool.
that's like my favorite one.
Come on, you want to sit there and be like, make it so.
Make it so.
Yeah.
So, oh, great. Hot. Yeah, I think there's gonna be a bar, so they're probably gonna have the lounge. What's that lounge called? Will be worth it.
The one that, I don't remember. But you're right,
Forward?
something that would be.
Something forward. Oh, I can't. I bet you they're gonna have that lounge so you can buy drinks and food.
It's too bad they don't tell you everything.
It
Like,
says a little bit, so it says explore iconic locations from the Star Trek franchise. A guided walkthrough attraction takes you aboard the legendary USS Enterprise D as a mysterious entity wreaks havoc through the ship's system. So it's like event kind of thing, like a let event. And then of course the gift shop. Am I wearing it? I think I am.
your Star Trek shirt?
See, it's the cutest.
That's so sick.
See, I'm subtle about it, but
Yeah.
it's like.
That's why
way
with
more.
the keychain, honestly, I don't think I would have figured it out if you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I freaking love Star Trek. Yeah, so since Earl Grey, and I got this chair.
Quarks Cafe. I don't know what that is.
Or, no, it's forward, forward.
With space travel comes worldly cuisine. Send your taste buds on an adventure at Quarks Cafe with special themed foods such as Triple Truffle Trio and refreshing worldly drinks. Also,
Aren't the tribbles the ones that were like
for
the dogs in the,
the original series, it's those little puffball things that they just keep multiplying.
oh, I don't remember.
They're like
I
taking
forget.
over the whole ship.
Which ones were the dogs that were like disguised as aliens? Did you see that episode? They were
It was
so,
a Next Generation?
no, it was.
It was
the
an
old-
original?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So funny. See if I can find it.
There was a lot of cringy ass shit.
Dude, and they're so bad, like when freaking Kirk fights like the lizard.
Mhm. Yes, yeah. I still remember the episode, I think it was the cringiest, was when you first see the Klingons, it's just like, dude, that's just Asian guys, like, it's
And
just,
freaking black.
yeah, yeah.
I know. Let's see, dog aliens.
So they're gonna have drinks. But that's all the show.
They don't wanna give it away.
Didn't want to tell you too much, that's why.
Look, it's this episode, I don't know which episode it is, but literally they just like, it's the dog and like a little. And it's so
I don't remember that episode. Honestly, it's funny enough, is because of Star Trek, it's the only reason why I ever want to go to the Sony Studios in, up north.
Why are you there?
So Desilu is the reason that Star Trek ever was created.
She helped fund it and like push it through, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Paramount bought Desilu out, and then that's where the studios was made for them.
Okay.
Sony bought out Paramount. So now it's no longer Paramount Studios, it's Sony Studios.
I didn't know that.
And they still have the original studio.
Like set up? Like
I
can
don't
you
know if
tour
it's
it?
set up, but you can definitely tour it, yeah. It's a different kind of tour than Universal Studios. Universal Studios is totally a theme park,
Let's see.
but, I wanna do the Warner Brother one and I wanna do the Sun, just because I love them. And
I didn't know Sony bought out Paramount.
I didn't either until I saw some video. This Paramount doesn't exist,
Crazy.
right?
Everything's getting like,
Everybody's taking over, that's the thing with Fox and Disney. Bought it out. I'm excited about this. It's funny enough, Wes was just asking everybody if they can do that. I'm like, I used to be able to do it when I was a kid. I can't really do it
it's
anymore.
really hard for me, like, I can barely.
Cheat.
I look like a chameleon, dude, like.
Yeah, like I used to be able to do it and I can't do it anymore. I don't know what the
You
heck
have to
it is.
bend your thumb like that, like.
Yeah.
Like I can do it, but it's all like, oh.
You're a little moving forward,
Yeah.
and it's like, if I try to do any further, it's just my pinky just wants to
How do
separate.
people do this so easily?
I don't know, I used to be able to do it, like I used to do it all the time.
Yeah, no, I can't do it.
Were you ever able to do
No,
it? No?
no. I've gotten better actually, cause before I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so funny. Definitely have to go.
for sure.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I saw like, it was like 8 o'clock last night, I was like.
Thank you for telling me,
No
because
worries.
it's totally my dream. Star Trek, Red Alert.
Is he into that too, or not?
Yeah. Let's see the costume guidelines.
They just said, that from what I saw, is you just cannot look like you're an employee.
What does an employee look like?
I'm wearing some kind of universal shirt. I don't know.
Guests may not create a false impression that they work for Universal
Correct.
or emergency personnel. Wearing
So-
clothing or accessories identified with law enforcement, security, firefighters, okay, that makes
If
sense.
they let you dress full Harry Potter with the robes and the tie and everything like that, I don't see why you can't dress in a.
Guests must be fully clothed, including shoes and shirts. Oh, damn, there goes my
There
costume.
goes the lizard costume.
Okay. Face painting is permitted.
So can you go as the half black, half white person?
Dude,
Do you remember?
the top one,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Prosthetic makeup, you can do, wait, no. If it conceals any part of your face other than your forehead.
So they're letting you dress like a Klingon then, because you're Klingon,
Yeah,
that's all
on the
that is for the
forehead, yeah.
Klingon, forehead.
Costumes may not interfere with security screening.
So can you go as a Cardassian? They do the forehead, but they're also the neck, right? They look like they have gills all over you.
Yeah,
And a Ferengi would be no then, because Ferengi is too much.
and they have those teeth.
Yeah,
A Romulan, you could do Romulan, you could do,
can you do the new Romulan? The new Romulan is too easy.
oh, what's Spock? A Vulcan.
The Vulcan,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just the ears.
Vulcan.
Most people are gonna guess like that, it's easy to
Probably,
go as
yeah.
fairy ears and boom, boom, done. blue shirt. By his pin and boom, so.
So science team is blue, security
Yeah,
is red.
because it got changed from the original series to the next generation, it changed, because I remember. The whole joke, and it's still a joke about the original series, the red shirts are the ones who die. But in Next Generation, Kirk and number one, they have the red shirts. Not Kirk, Carter.
Thing.
So they changed it all up, because in the original, Kirk has a yellow shirt.
That's true. I think in the next generation, yellow is engineering. And blue is science,
Blue is sense, because,
and red must be leadership.
yeah,
But then what is security? Is he yellow?
yellow, because that's what Worf wore when he got promoted. And the girl that was,
Lieutenant
the
Yard.
one that was doing it with Data.
Lieutenant Yard.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's.
And so was Data, Data was yellow.
They were yellow, yeah.
That was such a weird
I
story.
mean, some of those episodes, did you see the one where Counselor Troy, Deanna Troy gets like these weird headaches and it's like super cerebral. Sometimes they're like really creepy.
I think I did see those, yeah.
And
I
she's
did.
like being taken over by this entity
Yeah.
or something. Oh, that would give you the creeps.
Yeah. Did you ever watch the one with Seth MacFarlane, the Orville?
I watched a couple episodes. They're totally making fun of.
It does, it gets way more serious towards the end. I highly recommend you watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, it gets really, really good towards the end. They ended up like just kind of canceling it. The whole Fox Disney merger kind of killed the show.
Yeah.
But at first, yes, at first it's a total joke, and then it just gets progressively serious.
Okay.
And honestly, it does it's almost like a takeoff of like if it happened right after Next Generation. It's just so good, like after,
Interesting.
yeah, it's just so good afterwards.
Have you seen any of the new ones? Like the Enterprise, the new Enterprise?
No, my ex's mom though is huge in Trek, and she constantly tells me. I watched the first season of Picard.
I haven't watched it. Don't tell me.
And I liked it.
Okay.
I liked it a lot. But I just for some reason. I
I'm waiting to
watched
finish the movies. I'm almost done.
the new movies.
The Star Trek, because there's like the original, they have
Yeah.
their movies, and then they have
The
the
Chris-
next generation
the Chris
movies
Pine
with where he becomes like Borg
Yeah.
and all that. And then there's like a few more before you watch Picard, because I don't think you watched Picard already.
Yes.
I know Data dies. So I know he died in one of those movies, but I haven't seen it happen yet.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, I gotta wait.
Yeah.
But the new ones, there's I think it's called Enterprise. They made it so dramatic, dude. You know how like the next generation that like starts, it has its cycle, hero's journey, and then it ends, and then you start a new one.
Yeah.
These ones have like cliffhangers,
Mhm.
and they drive me nuts.
Good.
And it's too much fun, right? I'm like, no.
This because I'm huge into like comics, and I think one of my favorite comics, and I own it, is this one where they have the Green Lantern Corps meets Star Trek.
I've heard about this comic.
It was so good because so you know what a Green Lantern is,
See,
and you know how you can do whatever you want with the ring.
yeah.
Spock, it's the original
Mhm.
theme. Spock, he kind of like messes with the ring, and he kind of figures out some basic principles out of it, and he makes copies of it so his team can do stuff like they can make like on the fly like jetpacks and stuff like that, or like tools, but they can't do as much as like a Green Lantern ring can do.
That's the original, right?
Yeah, I was just like, that is so damn cool,
Freaking Spock.
right?
Yeah,
It was really good, though.
I've heard about that one.
Yeah. If you want to read it, I would lose any to look for it, but I have.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll sit down.
This is it. Justin left him. I know. He said, I didn't get my 10 hours, damn
The place of broken promises.
it. You guys have fun.
Thanks.
Learn a thing or two about a thing or two.
I'll try.
Bye.
Alrighty, how's everybody's break?
Great.
Was it much needed?
Oh yeah, much needed.
Much needed. Alright. Yeah, it was a much needed break. Alright, so continuing off, the navigation log checkpoints. So the checkpoints or fixes are selected by the pilot and chosen from the given spots on FAA navigational charts, or known as landmarks to the pilot, or known landmarks to the pilot. So as I mentioned, down here in San Diego, there's a lot of familiar landmarks that you should be able to recognize as the person flying the plane. But as you start to venture off into new unfamiliar territory, you might not be too familiar, so you have to reference to the sectional charts to be able to find these different visual references. The second bullet point, I hear mixed things on it, but each checkpoint should be no more than 15 nautical miles apart. 20 miles is acceptable to most. I usually keep it within 20. If you're within 20 nautical miles, that's acceptable. Anything more than that could potentially be dangerous because the further apart the checkpoints, the more time you have in between to get off course and not be familiar with where you're at. Then you'll be doing the 5 Cs. The more visual checkpoints you have, the easier it'll be to recognize where you're at and when you need to make a turn and how long you should be in between legs and so on. VFR navlog should mainly consist of fixes that the pilot can visually see and confirm by line of sight. GPS waypoints should be avoided. VORs are acceptable, but should be limited on a navlog. So VORs you can see, but they can be pretty hard to see if you're super high up. If you're at like 8,500, 9,500, it might be hard to see. Sure, yes, you can use them for navigation, but as a visual reference point, it might be a little difficult. Required pre-flight actions, 91-103. So this is required for any instrument IFR flight, but it is also required for any flight not in the vicinity of your home airport. So anytime you fly to a new airport, you technically should be doing the NW craft in the paved checklist, the V environment. But especially with cross countries, you want to do this. So we want to check the notices to airmen, the NOTAMs, for any domestic and FDC NOTAMs, either at your departure airport, en route, at your destination, and alternate if you choose to have one. Whether you use ForeFlight or AWC, either or is acceptable. They're both approved by the FAA. I still recommend getting if the weather is any bit questionable or you're unsure about something, you can call the weather briefer at 1-800-WX-BRIEF to be able to get some more information, have them explain what you're seeing on ForeFlight or AWC. Known ATC delays, while we're on the topic, I'll just pull it up. There's gonna be a FAA website, flight delay information, and it's gonna show a map. As you see, it's all the bigger airports. San Diego is having delays due to weather, low ceilings. There's traffic management program in effect for arriving traffic in San Diego. And it's saying the Gate hold and taxi delays are between 30 and 45 minutes. So this is something you might want to consider if, for whatever reason, you were flying into San Diego, you might not be able to get in right when you think you're going to get in because of these delays. San Francisco, same thing, low ceilings. Ground delay again. So it only really applies to bigger airports, but you can explore different regions. So let's go ahead and do the southwestern states. This will break it down into smaller airports. The map view will have all the bigger airports. Breaking it down by region will show a lot of the smaller airports and show more. You can even look up by airport. I don't know if KSEE will be on here. Yeah, it's not on here. Route North Las Vegas. Not on here. So yeah, it's limited on different airports that they show. But
International airports or?
most of them are international. So like I said, the delays wouldn't necessarily really apply to the smaller airports that you're probably gonna be flying into. I have flown into Palm Springs. So if you do fly into a bigger airport, you want to be aware of any delays, because that'll then bring us to our fuel planning, which we'll have to make sure we're good at. Runway lengths, you might end up at some airports that have shorter runways. It might be a hotter day, higher altitude. You might have a bunch of fuel. Are you going to be too heavy and too high of a density altitude to be able to take off? Maybe, so that's something you need to look into. Alternates, let's just say you were flying somewhere and it was starting to get bad at 7 p.m. and as you're getting there, maybe 6 p.m. the weather changes, in a quick moment, and it's now IFR and you can't get in. Well, now what are you doing? Where are you going? That's why we choose alternates to have different routes and different airports to fly to. Fuel requirements. What is the VFR day and night fuel requirements?
It's 30 for destination in the day. And then
Plus 45 for Sling up to 2 hours. extra.
Cool. And then takeoff and landing distances. This is when we'll use our pressure and density altitude to be able to calculate our takeoff roll and our landing roll to see if we can actually land on the runway.
Is it 2 hours per tank or is it
No, it's
2 hours total? So 1
it's
hour.
an hour per tank. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But if it was 2 hours per tank, that would be like pretty impossible, because a lot of times 20 to 25 gallons is all we can take because of weight and balance. So aircraft cruise speed. So this chart off here on the right will be found in the POH. Do you guys remember that airspeed section on the paper nav log? So this is what you'll use. Every plane has different performance levels. The POH is a standardized information for flying the Sling 2 and should be used for filling out nav logs. If the flight at exact altitude isn't listed, you can round up or down or interpolate out for the airspeed. During normal cross countries, pilots should have the max power of 5,000 RPM. Bless you. This is best combination of fuel, speed and fuel efficiency while placing lighter loads on the engine. So with our example, we're at 6,500. We chose for our cruise altitude. 5,000 RPMs. Our indicated airspeed should be 90 knots. So therefore, our true airspeed would be 100. So on that paper nav log, you'd be putting 100 as the true airspeed when you're at your cruise altitude. So this is in the POH. You'll be utilizing this. For flight, so VFR nav logs are sort of your discretion. You don't have to do a paper nav log every time you want to go fly. It's not a regulation. For check rides and for phase checks, you'll probably be required to, especially for the cross-country phase check. And then for the PPL check ride, you'll have to do this. but you'll need to be familiar with common routes that other aircraft take. So like when I fly to Hemet or San Bernardino, I fly the same way every single time. When I fly to Vegas, which I've done so many times, I do the same route every time. Torrance, same route. So you'll get to talk to your other classmates and with your instructors and see what the best route is. So for flight specifically though, we'll show you common IFR routes after adding a departure and arrival airport to the flight plan section. You should not base navlogs off these routes, but use them to see what ATC may expect from the flight's navigation. So while these are designed for IFR, you can still use it as a VFR route. So right now I have Gillespie to North Las Vegas Airport. Right, boom. And I can tell you off the top of my head, it's going to be Julian, Thermal, 29 Palms, Jotnu, Goss, and then usually direct to Las Vegas. But we can, where is it at in here? There's usually a routes section. I don't know where it is on the where it is on ForeFlight web.
What are you looking for?
There's a routes, oh, route advisor.
You are.
It looks differently on the iPad. But you can select different routes, right? So this is only, I'm gonna show you on ForeFlight app because the web is kind of stupid. Okay, here we go. This is what I was looking for. So right here, this is the route I usually take. So it takes you from Gillespie to Julian, Julian to Thermal, Thermal to 29 Palms, 29 Palms to Jotnu, Jotnu to Goffs, and then usually they'll just vector you to the airport. So this is an approved IFR route that you can use as sort of a reference when trying to plan a VFR route. With that being said, though, a lot of these waypoints that are used, like Dixa, Kong, Zelma, Jotnu, those are GPS waypoints. So you need,
Letter.
yep. So you need to have a visual. And that can be difficult when flying to one location that's just desert in between, right? There might not be a lot of different references, but I mean, here you have your VOR, so you'll fly over the city of Palm Springs. You get to 29 Palms, there's gonna be an airport off to your right. You get to Jotnu where you make another turn, there's looks to be a lake or maybe a dry lake bed. And then you get to Goss, that'll be a VOR. Not too many things over here, but you'll have Bullhead City Airport way off to your right. And then over here, there's an airport you can fly over, and then you're in Vegas. So you can make visual references pretty much out of anything. It could be oil tanks or water tanks. It could be a dry lake bed. It could be a national like park. Like there's so many different things you could use, but that's just an example.
So you just use like satellite mode for that, try to see what's on the ground.
No, I guess what I would typically like to do is why this like isn't loading. okay, so let's just say here we're doing our route. And we have the sectional pulled up. Right, out here in Julian, we have the actual VOR, but then we have an airport off here. You don't have to fly over the visual reference. If it's off to your left or off to your right, and you can call it out, all right, when this visual reference is directly at my 9 o'clock, I'm starting my turn to the next leg. You get over here to thermal VOR, you're directly over an airport, you have Palm Springs off to your left. 29 Palms VOR, you'll have 29 Palms Airport off to your left. Jot News right here. Oh, there's a dry lake bed off to your right. You get to Goffs. The VOR will be there, but you'll have Bullhead City off to your right. So you could use different references. You could make your own references. It's literally your discretion. The visual checkpoints with the magenta flag, those are very helpful, but they're limited, right? You're not gonna really find those out here in the middle of nowhere. Cool. So what I usually like to do is I like to use ForeFlight to first create my route and then use a paper nav log to then have that for check ride and phase check. ForeFlight's like a good like supplemental tool to sort of just plan and see different routes that you want to take.
And the paper nav log is like too complicated.
No, it's a lot of people struggle with it though. I mean, in my opinion, it's pretty straightforward, but a lot of people do struggle with paper nav logs. They just get overwhelmed by it, but you're literally doing the same thing for every single row. So as long as you know how to do one row, you know how to do the entire thing.
Yeah.
It can become a little complicated when you factor in like top of climb, like how to calculate when and where you'll reach 6,500 or top of descent, when to start your descent from 6,500 to like reach the airport at the right time.
Mhm.
That's when it can become a little complicated, but it's really not that bad. VFR flight following. So this is what we've talked about before with like SoCal. This is a service provided by radar ATC facilities. Pilots receiving the service are advised of any radar target observed on the radar display, which may be in such proximity to the position of their aircraft or its intended route of flight that it warrants their attention. This service is not intended to relieve the pilot of responsibility for continual vigilance to see and avoid other aircraft. So a long sentence for ATC will tell you when there's traffic in your area. They'll tell you traffic, 12 o'clock, same altitude, advising you have traffic in sight. So just like Tower does for us, these ATC facilities do the same thing. They provide traffic updates. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be so reliant on them. You still need to keep your visual scan going. The issuance of traffic information as observed on a radar display is based on the principle of assisting and advising a pilot that a particular radar target's position and track indicates it may intersect or pass in such proximity to that pilot's intended flight path that it warrants attention. Even though you have your own route planned, you might have it in the GPS, or you might be following your paper nav log. You may have to climb or descend and deviate from your cruise altitude, or you might have to turn and deviate from your routing if ATC instructs you to do so. So when receiving VFR radar advisory service, pilots should monitor the assigned frequency at all times. This is to preclude controllers concerned for radio failure or emergency assistance to the aircraft under the controller's jurisdiction. So as I talked about before, what this VFR flight following is it's just a building with a bunch of different air traffic controllers in a dark room with a radar screen in front of them. And they control different sectors, and as you cross through those sectors, they'll pass you on to a different frequency, which is controlled by a different controller. So KSEE is here. And you take off. Maybe at this point, you'll be on SoCal 125.3. So from this point, you'll be on tower frequency. Over here, you'll be on tower frequency. These are all just made up kind of frequencies.
So when you're going from like KC Tower to SoCal, would you not go on like the practice frequencies over?
Nope,
You just go straight to your SoCal frequency?
straight to SoCal, because when you get VFR flight following, you're gonna request, they're gonna request it, so they're gonna give you your initial SoCal frequency that you're gonna contact, and they're gonna tell you when to contact them. And then from then on out, until you cancel services or you get to your destination, you're gonna be on a flight following frequency. And as you change regions, that'll change, so like, you might be on SoCal to start, and then as you get over Palm Springs or that area, it might change to Los Angeles Center. And then from there, as you get closer to Vegas, it'll change to Vegas approach, and then they'll pass you off to Vegas Tower.
So like right after you leave KC, once they tell you they're to.
Yeah, like
change
usually
frequency,
you'll
go straight
like,
to. town.
be in the downwind when they tell you.
Oh, really?
Unless there's like a bunch of traffic and they want to get you through that, and then it might be a little further ahead, but it's usually right when you take off.
Okay.
Um,
Towels will just tell you to switch over.
yep. The phraseology for requesting VFR practice approach, it'll be on Gillespie ground. So let's see.
Oh, I've heard it before. Yeah.
I'm just gonna write it out. So the first thing that you'll say is Gillespie ground, Sling 1234, VFR request. And they'll say Sling, this is ground talking, Sling 1234, say request. And the next thing that you will say is you need to tell them the type of aircraft in your request. So you could say Sling 1234 is a Sierra Lima Golf 2 slant Golf. So that's our type of aircraft, Sling 2, and then the equipment that we have.
Yeah.
Yep. Requesting VFR flight following to KBGT at, we're flying here to Vegas, what would be an appropriate cruise altitude? How do we determine what altitude we should fly at? What things do we take into consideration?
Bravos, different airspaces,
Bravos,
cloud coverage.
cloud coverage. But how do we choose a VFR cruise altitude?
Temperature.
Temperature doesn't matter.
Ground level,
What'd you say?
elevation, ground elevation.
So yeah, terrain, right? We'll choose terrain. So if there's terrain at 7,500, what altitude should we fly at if we're flying from here to Vegas?
8,500. 8,000, 8,500.
Why?
You want to be like at least 1,000 feet over the highest point.
Sure, but is 8,500 the right altitude? What do we have to take into consideration?
I think the direction, right?
Yeah.
If it's,
So it'd be like 9,500, right?
Yes.
The direction we're going.
Right, VFR cruise altitudes are based off your magnetic course. And here to Vegas is an easterly magnetic core, so therefore we're gonna be at 9,500. Velocity ground's gonna come back, and pretty much what they're gonna do is they're gonna tell you a departure frequency and either to clear through the Bravo or remain outside the Bravo. Usually expect like a right downwind departure, but it'll be something like this. Remain outside of Bravo airspace. Expect a downwind departure. Departure frequency. Usually it'll be 125.3.
Your phone's going.
I can already tell you who it is. Anthony Thompson. Oh no. And then they'll either give you a squawk code, meaning transponder, or they'll say assigned by tower. And they'll say squawk. I always forget how to spell squawk. SQ. That's wrong, but whatever. 0256. And then all you do then is repeat it exactly how they said. So you'll say remain outside of Bravo, expect a right downwind departure, departure frequency 125.3, squawk 0256. Ground will come back and they'll say read back correct. Advise tower of VFR flight following prior to departure. And then you'll say Wilco and Sling 1234 is ready to taxi to 27 right with information alpha. And that's how you request VFR flight following,
Will go.
like will comply.
Oh.
Yeah. Or you can say Roger, or you can repeat back, advise tower, VFR flight following prior to departure. Wilco is just like a shorthand way to acknowledge.
Cool.
Yep.
We read.
VFR flight plans. So this is a detailed version of flight following where ATC already has your route and altitude preloaded in their system. I have never filed a VFR. Okay, I filed a VFR flight plan one time, but that was under like special circumstances, but I've never filed a VFR flight plan, usually only IFR. When doing this, it has a lower chance of getting rejected by ATC compared to flight following. If you do not close this flight plan within 30 minutes of landing of your given ETA, ATC will send search and rescue. So whether it's in for flight or on WX100, 1-800-WX brief, or you call FSS, and you file a flight plan, a VFR flight plan, and you do not close it after landing, search and rescue will come look for you. So it's a little, as it mentions, you might get your flight following if you do it this way, as opposed to if you request it from ground. I've never gotten rejected by ground, but this way is a little more formal, a little more paperwork and documentation.
And you
But-
have to close it.
But you have to close it.
Why would you get rejected?
Too busy. Yeah. They have big jets coming into San Diego International. 4th of July weekend, there's plane after plane after plane, and ATC is just overworked. They can't accommodate for a small little 2-seater plane to give them their radar services. Yes, any questions?
Yeah, what would be the benefit of filing for a flight plan? You said you did it in just one specific case, but I'm curious what the other cases it would be beneficial.
So the case that I did it was I flew to North Las Vegas during Formula One weekend. And it was very, like, you were given like arrival and departure time slots. So when you like paid your landing fee and they're like, all right, you need to arrive at this time and you're given like a 30-minute grace period, like plus or minus, you have to be there at that time. So, and they require to file an actual VFR flight plan. The other cases would be, let's just say ground can accommodate for you to get flight following and you want to fly here to Vegas. If something were to happen, well, one, you wouldn't get traffic advisories. And two, if something were to happen, you're not on frequency with anybody. They may not know that you went down, how to do an emergency landing. So doing a flight plan is just a little more guaranteed that it'll get approved. I'd say that's really the only benefit. Because either way, when you file a flight plan, you're then gonna get flight following.
Okay.
So I guess, yeah, the benefit is that it's more likely to get approved if it's like super busy.
Okay.
Choosing alternates, so every flight, whether VFR or IFR, should have alternate airports pre-selected. This could be for multiple reasons. It could be for the weather gets bad. Maybe the airport shuts down because there was an accident and they're not letting anybody in. Or your plans change, whatever, but even with proper weather briefings, conditions can change and leave the pilot in a situation where his or her initial destination airport is no longer available. Alternates should have services like fuel and FBO or administrative building. Rule of thumb, south and further inland than the initial destination airport. I don't necessarily agree with the south part because, you know, let's just say we're flying from here to LA. Here to LA, the weather's bad along the coast. So but always choosing an airport that's further inland from your original destination is usually gonna have better weather. So if we were flying here to LA, don't choose like John Wayne as alternate because most likely it'll be the same weather. When you do choose alternate, as I mentioned, make sure they have different services. So FBOs can have like pilot lounges that like allow pilots to like take a nap if they need to. They have rental cars, sometimes free crew cars. They sometimes have like snacks and vending machines and coffee and stuff like that. And then fuel. So if you land at an airport that has zero fuel, and you had to divert, let's just say 50 miles to the east, that's 50 miles of fuel that you may not have accounted for. And if your alternate doesn't have fuel, then you could be screwed. So always choose an airport that has fuel. So today and what we will start with tomorrow morning is the dreaded engine fire. I want you guys to review both the checklist version of doing it and the POH. If you can remember the POH way, great. I mean, you should remember it, but have a flow. Me personally, I'm using the checklist. Checklist was approved by the manufacturer. You're not going to flip through the pages of the POH when you're in an emergency situation, but you have the checklist right there and open. So go ahead and memorize the engine fire procedure from the checklist and sort of develop that flow. You should be share flying all these procedures. That's going to help out tremendously. And then V speeds. I want you guys to memorize the white, green, yellow, and red arcs and have all of our aircraft V speeds memorized, which hopefully should have been done well before today. So engine fire procedure, V speeds, and the arc on the traditional airspeed indicator.
Sweet.
Good? Zoom people, good?
Good.
Cool. Well, that will be it for today. Tomorrow, we're gonna start off with the engine fire and those V speeds with an emergency situation. And then we'll attempt to go over the E6B. And compasses and GPS information. This will probably, yeah, it's a longer one, so. Cool. Well, if there's no questions, then that'll be it for today.
Okay.
Like, so when when you have your own plane, and you're like flying around or whatever, do you have to do like like make one of these cross-country plannings if you wanted to go to like Vegas or whatever? It's like even if, because one of my friends, they've got a plane here,
Mm-hmm.
and like if they wanted to take off and like just go to Vegas, do they have to do one of these tours? Can they just go?
Nobody has to do one of these. Yeah. The only time you'll probably do a paper nav log is on your check ride or face checks. If you just want to go fly, make one in for flight, put in your GPS, go fly.
Okay.
If you don't want to do one in for flight and you just want to find your way to Vegas, go do it. There's no rules on that you have to do this.
Okay.
But for the sake of you being a pilot that's learning pilot things and having phase checks and check rides, you need to know how to do this.
Okay.
Even if you never ever do it again.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was wondering, because like I watched all these like random videos that come up on my Instagram. I've never seen like any of them have a course planning,
Yeah,
like a full course planning. Of course, they've got like random little things here and there, but
yeah, it's check ride and phase check.
yeah, because like after I passed my PPL or whatever, it's obviously down the road, but my like my nana, she lives in Simi Valley, she's in LA.
Mm-hmm.
She used to fly. She
Mm.
wants me to like come get her and then bring her back down here.
Yeah, what do you
She
say?
come visit us.
I mean, pre-flight planning, know the airspace, do flight following, stuff like that.
So do you need a flight following every time?
Nope, that's just a luxury service provided by ATC.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. The one time I didn't use it, I made a very serious mistake, so I always highly recommend using
What was it?
through Bravo. Yeah, so always use flight following. If I would have been on flight following, I wouldn't have been in that situation.
How do you fly through the Bravo? Can't you see like where the airspace is on?
Yeah, but you go try to navigate LAX Bravo VFR,
I get that.
not on VFR corridor, not on flight following, not with the Bravo clearance, and report back to me, let me know how that goes.
Listen, no, that sounds like a good time.
Yeah, even with flight following, you still have certain procedures you have to do.
Yeah, because I probably have to fly around Bravo. So you can get to Simi Valley.
We can look at how far you'd have to fly off the coast.
I should have been really.
Yeah, you have to go like well around the Bravo. And that could be the difference of, 30, 40 minutes, just maybe flying all the way out here off the coast.
So you try to get a request to fly it, like, or well, you could try to fly under it, right? Or is
Well,
LAX to the surface?
LAX is different because there's different transition routes, VFR transitions you have to do. They don't just give you, oh, clear to the Bravo, own navigation. You have to do a VFR Bravo transition route. And there's different transition routes published, and they'll say, which one do you want? And if you aren't familiar with those and you're like, I don't know, they're not gonna let you through. Like, you need to know what you're doing. So like, there's like the coastal transition, which you have to fly to a certain GPS waypoint and then track a certain radial of the LAX VOR to the VOR and then track a certain radial outbound into your out of the Bravo. So it's very, very complicated airspace.
So you just have to try to learn those if I wanted to fly up there.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, yeah.
Complicated stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna hang up on Zoom. Let's all look at Adam's picture.
See you guys. Thanks, Corey.
Yep, see ya.
Hasta.